me to ask, and Sister Raina, you let me know what the format of how we move forward.
Okay, I will do. I think right now, to his point, everybody's microphones are pretty much muted except for greetings, Sister Afia Zakia. If you want to speak, I would say to unmute your microphone. And if I see two people do it at the same time, I'll go ahead and call on the person who I've seen unmute first. If anybody would like to go ahead and start with questions based upon what Brother Cashawn has shared, or what you've seen on the presentations, the floor is now yours. Let me see. I don't know if I see Brother Costco. I'm gonna start calling out names. Brother Costco, Brother Edward. Does anybody have any questions this morning for Brother Cashawn? Okay. I'm wondering if people are having trouble undoing their microphones as well.
Maybe so. Yeah, you may be on mute and not realize it. Are you able to take them off mute manually, Raina?
I am. I'm gonna go ahead and see. If you cannot unmute your microphone, if you hit you can raise your hand, or you can post in the chat box as well. Let's see. Mama Afia, I'm gonna go ahead and start with you. You're at the top. If you have questions or comments, now is a good time. Go ahead. Let's see. Can I do this?
I'm sorry, I just joined, so I really didn't hear much.
Oh, okay.
Unfortunately.
Did you? Okay. I'm not sure if you were able to watch the presentations over the past few days. I'll keep going through and unmuting other microphones, and if a question comes to mind, feel free.
Okay.
Right. Let's see. Sister Kanisha Butter. Let's see. Some of these I can't unmute. Brother Edward. Sister Tamika. Let's see if I do this. There we go. Any questions? Well, if nobody has questions, I do. I don't know if they're here to just tune in and listen in. But Brother Cashawn, I don't know if people are logging off and logging back in to be able to talk, is what I'm wondering about. There we go. Brother Robert. Well, as we talk about sustainable development and looking at how you actually make this a reality, I know this was not an easy feat, an easy task to actually complete for you. And knowing that, your family is there supporting you throughout it all. Let's see, somebody is saying that they're having problems with audio. I think that's the thing. Okay. Let me see if I can help unmute you, whoever is LG Stylo number 4. Let me see. Yes, you can actually dial in using the phone number. Let me post it in here for you. It's also in your email if you need help. Brother Cashawn, bear with me for 1 second while I pull up the phone number. I'm just going to copy and paste it in the chat box in case anybody else has challenges. Let's see. I'm gonna give it to everyone just so we can all be on the same page. There you are. If you're stateside, if you're not in the United States, I also have a global number for you to dial in on if for any reason your audio isn't working. I hope that helps. Yeah. Okay, go ahead. We have two mics that are unmuted at this point. If you all have questions for Brother Cashawn, just around the sustainable development of Kazi, to complete something like this is major. And I know without your family support, I know it wouldn't have been possible. But looking at some of the challenges that you actually had in order to make, we'll just even focus on the, well, hold on. We'll focus on the headquarters currently. And getting something like this done, your step-by-step process, I would say, what would you say the biggest challenges for somebody who's looking to either contribute to this type of work or support what you already have going on right now? What would you say some of your greatest challenges have been?
Well, what I would start off by saying is that it's important to have those who you can receive advice from. So I would say one thing, kind of the other end of that question is one thing I think that helped us to avoid many challenges was having ones that we could take counsel from who had been in Ghana and lived longer, who had dealt with building or development. That is very, very important. I think, probably one of the main challenges for me, I wasn't in the States. I wasn't into construction. As far as that's not something I did. So I had to, even though I may have been familiar with kind of small things, just through repairing my own home or doing things of that nature, I wasn't as familiar as someone who had worked in the construction industry. And so I had to really learn two things. One, the construction language, you would think maybe is kind of universal, but there are differences in even the language and what things are called. So there was a lot of times when talking with the contractors and those who were working on the project, I may be speaking of one thing and assuming that, they overstood what that was, but maybe they may have called that something different, how they identified it. So just knowing the construction language, let alone the actual language just in which we're speaking. Of course, that's always a challenge and a barrier, but knowing there's an even different construction language that I had to learn. And in learning that, it helped me to be able to navigate. So then when I could make requests about things, then it was clear what was meant. There was no loss in translation. But that was a major challenge, just kind of learning the construction language for development. And also just knowing how things work as far as people being paid, and knowing that schedule, being able to gauge how much something should cost, how many blocks you may need, how much time it should take for this particular project, how much sand you need. All of those things were challenges because, again, literally, we built everything from scratch, from digging the foundation to, pouring the foundation walls. All of that was done from scratch. And so one thing that I would say that was a benefit definitely was literally being here on site. We started building the foundation for on the actual residential headquarters. We have a manager's quarters, which is roughly about a 20 by 20 space where the site manager resides. So we had that built fairly quickly. That was roughly around between July and October 2015. 2016 February is when we began digging the foundation for the main residence. And I wasn't here for the initial. I was here for the initial digging of the foundation, and then I left. So the foundation was finished when I returned in September of 2016. And at that time in 2016, when I returned, the foundation and the first floor walls were up, with the second floor serving as a roof. So when I returned, we literally came back to a construction site, and I came with my family. At the time, it was me, my wife, and 4 children, and we lived in that construction site while work was going on. So, and we were here for 6 months. So literally, we were here every day. It was an ongoing joke between us that no matter how much we swept, it was always going to be dusty because you always had sand, cement, dust. It was a construction zone. So, but I say all that. I'm mentioning all that because it was a lot, and I give thanks, as you mentioned, Sister Raina, that my family was here to be supporting because I couldn't have done it without them. But I know the importance of actually being here. And so I could see everything being built. Anytime I had questions, I would always ask. I was very attentive to what was going on, the design, the style, because again, certain things can be just interpreted differently. How things may be done here in Ghana. You may think you want your bathroom here. Most of the bathrooms have steps in them, right? That made me, I'm not used to having a step when I walk into the bath, like step up to walk into the bathroom. But that's the design that's here. So if you just assume that it's going to be done one way, you come back and they've already laid the floor out and it's done another way, then, you know, you can either be upset or you can understand that, look, things, you know, there's a difference in interpretation. So you have to be very, very clear. So clear communication was very, very critical to be a part of a project like this. Not everybody is afforded that time to be able to stay in a construction zone, or you may not want to stay in a construction zone. It wasn't for everyone. I mean, literally for us, in addition to being in the construction zone, we didn't really have any electricity. We had one small solar generator where we could power phones and laptops. We didn't have a refrigerator. We didn't have a stove. And we lived here. At the time, our water wasn't running. We had like a gravity-fed tank that we were using at the time. So we literally were living, you know, off the bare minimum. But we endured that because we wanted to be present here all the time. And I think in the long run now that's paid off. I can say that even with us being here, there's always things that happen that, you know, you learning from, you wish you could do better. Design wise, we were part of the entire design. And we actually, when we initially started, the design was for 2 stories. But as we built the second story, we realized that we could literally add 1 more story, or at least a half a story, and use the other half for a rooftop balcony, and our cost wouldn't really be extremely higher. So that's when we added a third floor, which included 2 extra rooms, which are like our resource rooms now that we have. So just being here was very, very important. And I think that anyone who's developing in Ghana, especially your first time, it's good to be here and know. On the flip side now, for Liate Wote, I'm not there all the time. I go back and forth, but that's where we have someone like the brother I told you, Brandon Rogers, who is facilitating and leading up that project. He's the person on the ground. So he's our eyes and ears. And because he is familiar with, you know, the designs that we want and that we're looking for, and that he also is hands-on, he's on the ground, then, you know, I feel much better. I feel more equipped because of the experience that I can have conversations with him. He keeps good communication with me about what's going on the ground. So I'm in a better position where I don't have to be there day to day, even though I go periodically and check in to make sure everything is developing according to plan. So, but yeah, to answer the question, Sister Raina, I think one of the biggest challenges was just making sure that I knew kind of the construction language and making sure I'm here to make all of the pieces align the way that, you know, we saw the vision of it aligning.
Okay, well, give thanks. That really didn't answer my question. I have seen a few people submit some questions, and I see some microphones unmuted. For those, the 706-830 number and the 678-974 number, your microphones are unmuted. I'm gonna let the 706 number start with your question, and then 678 go forward, and then Afia Zakia, I will ask your question that you submitted in the chat box as well. Your microphone is unmuted.
Are you sure they had a question, Raina?
It looked like they went through the process to unmute it. In the interim, I'll go ahead and ask Sister Afia's question is, what African-centered institutions are partnering with your institute in the United States or the diaspora doing environment, ecology, or other work that's similar?
So I mentioned one institute, Migrating Culture, is a brother from the U.S. Right now, we don't have any other particular institute that we're partnering with. As we begin to develop the curriculum, we will. Here in Ghana, we're partnering with some African-centered institutions, a Bibi Fohodie or a Bibi Tumi, which some of you may know of. Dr. Obadale Cambon is one of our partners in the work that he does. We also have been working with local craftspeople, including bamboo construction. What our goal is as we develop the curriculum to build on it. We have formed a partnership with the African Culture School out of Orlando, Florida. They have been our partner insofar as bringing groups here and have helped since we began the construction of the residential headquarters. They were here putting in work then, and actually came this last August as well. We are actually looking for potential partnerships, particularly around our curriculum development, and that's one of the reasons why the summit, we're very excited about the summit actually coming to Ghana. So those institutes that are interested in working with us and continue to build and support what we're doing, as well as to expand, there'll be opportunities. But there are individuals here in Ghana who we're working with, many who have repatriated in return. And also another institute that's a partner of ours is Kantanka. Some of you may have heard of Kantanka. They built a Ghana-made car, as well as other tools and equipment. We're working with Kantanka, particularly we'll be working with them on our solar. They've developed some solar technology that we're looking to use. Another one of our partner organizations is Ghana Bamboo Bikes. So one of the modes of transportation between the institute where we are in the main village will be the bamboo bike. So we'll be working with Ghana Bamboo Bikes on equipping the institute with these bicycles that can be used. But yeah, right now we're looking for more institutions that we can partner with who are aligned with HABESHA and who feel that they can bring, you contribute something, to the overall project. And again, we're just working on phase 1 of the project, which is the 4 acres, where we'll have, like I said, we'll have 5 of the 20-foot ecodomes and 4 of the 40-foot 2-story. These are octagonal mud block structures. Those structures will have 2 of them will be residential, 1 will be classrooms, and 1 will have a teaching kitchen on the first floor, with the top being like dormitory style. So again, our goal is to have all of those installed by October 2020. On the site as well, we have our farm and our research center. We're currently growing rice, sugarcane, and we have a variety of fruit trees that we're growing, as well as a plantain and banana orchard that we're growing on the land. Our focus will be on medicinal herbs. We'll basically be focusing on 3 main plants at first. 1 is moringa, the second is bamboo, and the third will be hemp cannabis. As that begins to evolve here in Ghana, currently both hemp and cannabis are illegal. However, Parliament is taking up some potential laws on that. So we see that as opportunity as we go and develop to do more research on that, particularly indigenous strains of cannabis that we know from various African countries that we can begin to research their uses and properties. So yeah, I hope that answers the question, that we're always looking for organizations that have similar missions and visions that can support and also be supported by HABESHA in this project.
Give thanks. Sister Afia Zaki, I've unmuted your microphone in case you had any other comments. If he did answer the question, if you had some other suggestions.
Yeah, he did. It all sounds great, actually. Well, I think, at some point I'll try to talk with everyone about some of the curriculum stuff. Definitely would be interested in that. So yeah, I'll stay tuned.
Okay, beautiful, beautiful. Does anyone else have any questions? Sister DeBorah, I see you mentioned something. I don't know if you can you hear my little one in the background. If you had any questions.
Yeah, I was just asking, when exactly is the conference, the summit in Ghana? Do you have actual time or not yet?
Oh, yes.
Hello?
Yes. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes. I
Yes.
hear you now. I'm in Mexico, so the service is not so great.
Okay, you're in Mexico. Well, we are planning on being there for 9 days starting October 7th. That literally would be a travel day. And a little bit later on today around 4:30, we'll go a little bit more in depth around the 2020 Black Sustainability Summit and all the activities that we have lined up with HABESHA and Kazi. For us to contribute, but it will be starting October 7th would be the travel date, and then the return date would be on the 19th of October when you would actually arrive back home, but you would depart on the 18th. So the short answer is the 7th through the 19th is the time frame for the summit in Ghana.
Yeah, maybe we could talk sometime other about the shot situation to go to Ghana. I know you mentioned, so maybe I can hit you up on privately about that in terms of like what's required to get to Ghana, visa and shots.
Yes, we actually are working in conjunction. One thing that HABESHA does extremely well is prepare people, as I don't know if you heard Brother Cashawn when he started off, but they are working through a repatriation curriculum and program to get people prepared. But we will definitely be having, I think it's starting in January, calls for those who agree to come to the summit. To get everybody prepared. So monthly we'll be having calls to get you acclimated, what to expect, what you actually would need, how to get up and running, and then kind of also some, lays of the land. There are some nuances, cultural nuances that you need to be aware of if this is your first time traveling internationally, and particularly to Ghana, West Africa. So that will be a part of what we do to get people prepared and ready to go. It's not just enough for us to say, we'll see you guys there, but we definitely are working together to make sure that everybody's prepared and ready to make that journey. Is there any? Oh, go ahead.
From what do you contribute to your success from the time you reached Ghana? I know I heard some of it when you spoke at the summit last year when you had the presentation at the banquet, but what would you contribute to your success in terms of when you first reached Ghana doing the outreach work to how they've received you now? I know some people try and may not have the same amount of openness towards, goals and so forth. And when you deal with religion and you deal with different cultures and different things like that, all these things in the pot, what would you contribute your success to having Ghana receive you for the projects that you're doing? Does that make sense?
If I hear you correctly, you're asking what things do I feel has contributed to the success that we've had here in Ghana?
Right. Based on all the different things that could go wrong and in terms of culture, religion, and trust and all of that, it seems like you're really an excellent model of what can happen. So many people have ideas and then they get dissuaded or they lose encouragement. But, when I look at your example, it's there. But I just was curious to hear from you.
Well, I'll say this right here. I first came to Ghana in 2003. Myself and my wife, we were on a buddy pass, and we came to Ghana. And subsequently, from 2004 on, we've been returning. But of course, we also, when we return, we've been bringing groups. So even as Sister Raina kind of mentioned about, I think you asked some question about the visa and all those things. We've been facilitating groups, both youth and adults, since 2004. At least one annually since then, but now we are facilitating several groups per year. But what I can say, just as far as what I feel has been the main contributor to the success that we've had here, is having a support system and taking advice from those who've been here already. I know I said I first came in 2003. I told my children in 2006. Back then, I only had 2 children. I told them we leaving to go to Ghana. I told them in 2005 we going to Ghana and live. I said it again in 2006. I said it again in 2007. And it got to a point they kept telling me, say, "Hey, you keep saying this every year." And they said, "But we haven't left yet." I stopped saying it. And the reason I stopped saying it wasn't because my resolve got any less, but I knew that, you know what? I need to make sure that I'm putting the efforts towards it and not just say it, but actually put in the time. So it literally took me 10 years before I could manifest what I had been saying I was going to do, which is return and live in Ghana. So perseverance is also another piece. Don't give up. Have a plan, right? I've seen brothers and sisters who come over here and just say, "Look, I'm up and leaving." It was a big joke when the presidency 2016, and I had even family members telling me, "Hey, if Trump get elected president, I'm moving to Ghana with you." And they were saying it like it's a joke. But the funny thing was, it was like kind of like, well, if the president gets elected, it's almost like I would never think of leaving America unless something drastic happened. Versus me, in the prime of my life, I made a decision that I wanted to leave, and I've been through that. But having that perseverance, never giving up, putting the plan in place. And of course, plans don't always go exactly as planned, but at least if you have some idea of what you're doing, begin to prepare yourself for that and seek out people who have either been to Ghana or more ideally who currently live in Ghana to learn from them. Mama Imakus, which some of you may know, she has a space called One Africa, which she has really welcomed and received so many Africans from the diaspora over the past 20 some years. She has a book that's entitled "Returning Home Ain't Easy, but It Sure Is a Blessing." Returning home ain't easy, but it sure is a blessing. That book documents her story. And so having someone like her as an advisor, having others on the ground like Sister Aymara, who's a sister who left Atlanta in 2004. And she actually was gone for 15 straight years. She just returned a few months ago for her granddaughter's birth. She was our main confidant and someone who I really looked to and supported. So having people in place, having a plan, being persistent, and also there's some lifestyle changes that you have to do. Even though Ghana has everything, all the trinkets that you would love in America, they may not be as readily available. So you have to train yourself and prepare yourself for this return, that you're not coming to America on the continent of Africa. You're coming to Africa, which has different nuances. And as much as you can prepare yourself as possible, some of the best ways to prepare yourself is to, the old saying, less is more. Wean yourself off of those things that are not necessities in your life. I've heard quite a few people say that quote unquote African-centered and Pan-African and all of that. I've heard quite a few of them when they come to Ghana or either other places in Africa, but I can speak of Ghana particularly. They say, "I never knew I was so American until I went to Ghana." What do I mean by that? Or what do they mean by that? They meant that they thought they were so African because they wore African clothes, or they did this, or they had these practices that they did. They went to their house. You saw all of this. They had shrines everywhere. They did all of these things. They, knew the Nguzo Saba and all of that. Went to every Kwanzaa event. When they got to Ghana, they realized Africa is more than just these outwardly cultural nuances. It's the simplest things. And then also on the flip side of it is that they saw that maybe the fantasized version of Ghana in particular that they were thinking was not the same. You know, Ghana, there's two sides of a coin that we have to think about. One side is the transatlantic slave trade, and the other side is colonialism. Even though they happen on different places of the world, they had the same impact on African people, which is to disconnect us to our true selves. So colonialism manifests itself differently than the effects of our enslavement as African people. At the same time, make no doubt about it, it still had an effect that can be seen. And we cannot come to a place like Ghana and get frustrated when things aren't done the way we expect them to be done, or our brothers and sisters have certain mentalities. We have to realize that the same way in America, we have these effects of our enslavement and our trauma, our brothers and sisters on the continent have the effects of their being colonized. And we have to look at it from that larger perspective and realize that, no, we can't blame them for it. We can't have victim blaming. We have to look at the root cause, and we have to have the resolve that we're going to endure this because we know that this is a long distance race. This is not a short-term gain. If you're coming with a short-term gain and you're expecting everything to already be done, you need to wait another 50 years and let us do some more work. Then you can come to that fantasized Africa. Wait another 100 years. If you coming right now, be prepared to do work. Be prepared to come and do work. Yeah. Don't come prepared that you on vacation. Even we bring groups all the time. We tell them this is not a vacation. Not to say we don't enjoy ourselves and have fun. We're not here for vacation. We're here to reconnect. We're here to heal these wounds. We're thinking generational. One of my greatest ancestors is Mama Harriet Tubman. And I think about everything she endured, you know, and that there's a quote that some say it's not her and some say it's her, but it says, basically, I freed thousands of slaves. I would have freed thousands more if they only knew they were slaves. And what I tell our brothers and sisters in America and the Caribbean and other places, realize as much as we think we are conscious or woke or this and that, until we reach the continent, we get to really see who ourselves. Because if you come over here and you see some lizards running around and you start jumping and screaming and thing, or you have to take a bucket bath with some room temperature water that people are called cold, and you jump up and you can't take a bucket bath, or you riding down, you going somewhere to a rural area and they don't have a rest stop with a bathroom that's got, you know, automatic sinks and the flushing toilets, and you got to go into the bush or to a little stall and use the bathroom, you're not ready to come, because there still is levels of development that needs to be done. And we have to contribute to that, unless we're expecting others to come and build for us what we're supposed to be doing for ourselves. So I tell people all the time, don't get it twisted. You know, you can have all the luxuries you want. At the same time, know that in order to be able to say we're making an impact and we're not coming to just kind of live in our own little bubble or shell, that we're going to have to change our perspective of how we live, and we're going to have to let go of some of the trinkets that are actually holding us in America. You know what I mean? So I know that was a lot in one question, but I to your point, it to have success, you got to have resolve.
That was excellent. Thanks for sharing. And I remember at the banquet you mentioned that when you came, because this is key, I think, when you came to Ghana, you know, some people come to new places and they're like, oh, I have this, I have that, I have this. And I think I remember, you could probably clarify for me, you mentioned that you just came sharing and giving, and because of that, you came showing up working. They offered you, I don't know if it was land or opportunity to build, because a lot of times when people move into, I've moved into different communities before, and one of the things, the first thing I do is see, how can I serve first, you know, in terms of building connection, instead of coming, I have this thing and I want the support, you know, So was that part of your mentality when you came in to just see how, you know, you could serve first and then see what could be built? I know you asked for advice, and that's a great thing too, because I'm sure in the asking for advice you got things as well. But I find that it helps when you come into any place new to see how you could be of service first. So I just wanted to mention that too.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, you know, another, I would say, kind of mistake sometimes that we have coming into, you know, Africa in particular and then Ghana specifically is that we're coming in like we're like, you know, coming in with charity cases, you know what I mean? And we do our fair share of quote unquote charity work. You know, we have schools that we've adopted, orphanages, we do that work, but we make it very clear. We're not coming as a charity organization or as individuals for charity. We're coming for the healing. And the healing is reciprocal on both ends. We have healing to do as Africans who were taken away and our brothers and sisters who lost, because we think about, we were taken. Our brothers and sisters also lost, you know. They lost their mothers,
Right.
their fathers. We don't think about the trauma of that loss. You know what I mean? We only think about being taken away, but a lot of that trauma is still embedded in our brothers and sisters. You even have in some places in the interior of Ghana, in the north, up to this day, they still have kind of like cultural norms where after certain times, you know, you don't see people out after a certain time. And when you trace it back, it's back to when these places used to get raided, right? So people wouldn't go out after a certain time. So there's still the vestiges of our kidnapping, the vestiges of our enslavement are still here in Ghana as well. And so coming in with a mentality that, you know what, we're here to heal, we're here to be a part of this healing process. We're not coming just as charity case, oh, look at these poor children, or look at these poor people, they don't have this, they don't have that. No, we realize, again, looking at the larger scope, if anybody's read the book, How Europe Underdeveloped Africa by Walter Rodney, it talks specifically how Africa got to the place it got to as far as this quote unquote underdevelopment. It's not by coincidence. It's very much intentional. So when we really have context of what we're coming into, it helps better prepare us for what we'll be facing. And I'll say this, it ain't for everyone. It's not for everyone. People can come over. It's going to be a lot of people coming in December for Afrochella. If you haven't heard of that, that's like a big celebration, blah, blah, blah. People come to Afrochella, you stay in Accra, you're going to have the nightlife. Trust me, Ghana got thriving nightlife and people balling, and you're going to see mansions. You're going to see all of that. That's in Accra. You're going to see those things. And people, there's no lack of resources in the country. What's happened is those resources don't necessarily trickle out to the smaller areas. And to me, honestly, I see it no different than what's going on in America. I grew up in a small town in Southeast Georgia called Woodbine. It's in Georgia. It's 5 hours from Atlanta. But if you see some of the places where I grew up at and when I grew up, they will be considered just as undeveloped. We don't have to talk about places like Flint, where we still talking about water issues in a quote unquote developed country like America. We ain't gonna talk about the homelessness in Atlanta, et cetera, et cetera. So I say all of these things to say that we have to come ready to put in work. And if we're coming expecting things already set for us, then we're coming at the wrong time. We need another 50 to 100 years to get that set up. So if you got 50 to 100 years, you want to wait for everything already made up, come in. If you're ready to come and work, if you're ready to come and be a part of this solution and create a legacy for future generations, this is the time to come. But make no bones about it. It is that time, you know. The generation, I'll give you an example. When Mama Ima Kus came 25 years ago, her and her husband, he was a retired New York firefighter. Mama Ima Kus, she worked for, I think, the phone company. They were retired when they came. So 20 to 25 years ago, the majority of the people who came to Ghana to live were retirees, which means they had pension already. They already had certain resources in place. You still have retirees coming. However, there's been a large uptick in people coming in their prime ages between, let's say, 25 to 45. And they're coming in their prime ages with their families, and they're coming ready to work. because the mentality of many of those people is that, you know what, I don't want to give my best years to America or to the West. I don't want to just come as a retiree and then I'll just kind of sitting back relaxing. I want to be able to come and put my time and energy, instead of me putting in X amount of years in some company that really don't have my benefit. Let me see how I can put those same years into Ghana and see how I can contribute to the development. So we are part of what we're calling the brain gain. We know about the brain drain, which is when so many Africans left the continent of Africa to go to the West, and they use their intellectual property and all of their resources and skills to build up those places. We say we're returning, and so we're part of the brain gain. And that's what I'm seeing. I'm meeting more and more young people, and particularly young families that are coming and returning and wanting to contribute to the uplift and development and wanting their children to grow up here. That's another piece. Seeing what's going on in America, we made a decision that we don't want our children to be subjected to that, right? And so, yes, do we have to face some challenges? Is there some adjustment? Yeah, but in the long run, we made a decision that it's worth it because the sanity of our children, the health of our children, and for future generations, right? I'll give one last thing I'll say on this.
Thank you.
I'll say one last thing. If anyone knows the history of the Eastern Europeans moving to America in the 20s, the early 1920s, the teens and 20s, many of those Eastern Europeans came in from, Slovakia and all of those Eastern European countries. They came to Ellis Island. And when they came to Ellis Island, they, at first, they were in their own little enclaves, like their own little, you had your little Italy, you got this place, this town, Poland town, this and that. They were in those places to give themselves a support network. But if you go to those places now, Little Italy and all of these places now, you'll still see, pockets of those people. But many of the ones whose family were initially in those spaces have now spread out and dispersed themselves into the rest of the larger community. And now you don't know if they were of Italian ancestry or they were Polish ancestry or this and that, because now they've embedded themselves in the community. And so basically what we're attempting to do is say, you know what, now we're coming in as Africans born in the West, and we're creating these spaces as kind of like support systems. But the idea is that we will now embed ourselves in those communities, and eventually generations, 3-4 generations down the line, we now are part of the larger community. And we now have created, we hear this word integration, right? But we integrating into really our own. So this is part of the process that we're part of, and we see the momentum. Of course, 2019 has been dubbed the year of return, 400 years after the first documented Africans, enslaved Africans came to Jamestown, Virginia. They had a big celebration here because they have a Jamestown in Accra as well. So they had a Jamestown to Jamestown celebration. So it's a big push right now for the awakening of our people. And many of us see that not only kind of returning to reconnect, to visit, but physically being here. And, one thing I used to say 10 years ago is that I wanted to be a part of the welcoming committee. And I give thanks now that we literally are a part of the committee. It's not an official committee per se, but we're welcoming people to return who want to live here. And that makes me proud. What I do try to do is make sure that I share a realistic perspective of what it takes and the adjustments that need to be made, particularly based on the amount of resources you have. As I said, you can get anything you want in America, you can get it here. That's with unlimited resources. Most of us don't have that, so we have to work with what we have, and that way we can begin to adjust wherever we are to a different way of living. The simplest thing you can do is camp. Go camping. If you haven't been camping, go camping. And not to say you have to camp here, but many times camping gets you out of your comfort zone. And being in Ghana, being here in particular, as you build and develop, not everything is going to be in the same comfort zone or the same way you always wanted. So it just helps you to adjust in simple ways. Do you have something else you want to say or comment, sis?
I just want to say one thing. Thank you so much for sharing and bringing that from your direct experience, because what you said about the fact that it's about healing is so important, because I did a travel study in South Africa, and I was in Zimbabwe, and my travel study was what type of connection were happening between Africans and African Americans in business, nonprofit, and in education. So when I was at university in Zimbabwe, one of this came up to me and was like, you know what? I think you Americans, y'all complain about slavery too much, man. If I was an American man, I'd be making money. I would be having, I would just have so much opportunity, right? Who say, well, you own your own country. You're the beginning, you have your own country. Everybody in power looks like you. So what happened with all the corruption? They're like, well, you see, because you have, when the Portuguese came, they separated this tribe against that tribe and this tribe. I said, okay, well, when you see in America, if you take an elephant and you put a chain on his neck and it's on his foot when he's a baby, when he's a grown adult, psychologically, he think he can't bust that chain. And so you see, it's just two sides of the same colonialization. And when I brought it that way, they were like, oh, okay. So there is a dual learning that we could do from each other in terms of having these connections, going to Africa, meeting the everyday person in Africa, rather than the ones that just come to America. They may be the elite, and that may not be the best representation of African people that Black African Americans are gaining from people who come from Africa. So this connection is really excellent. So I just want to commend you on your work. And so yeah, that's it.
All right, give thanks. I know the time is getting close to the next presentation from our brother Chad. I'm interested to hear that presentation. So I don't know, Sister Raina, if we have time for another question or comment.
I don't think that we do. It's 11:58, but what I did ask is that if people have questions, to please post them. We'll definitely share them with you, Brother Cashawn. They can also email them if they haven't had a chance to watch the presentation and want to take a look back at kind of what we've discussed this whole time. I can take those questions later, send them to you, and then you can respond at your convenience. At this time, I want to just say thank you. You have definitely welcomed me, my family, into your home in Ghana, to the residential headquarters, and we're excited about coming to contribute to Kazi and the grand opening, and to host those workshops in Ghana. Give thanks for your sacrifice, for your time, your energy. And one thing I did want to mention was I remember calling you some years ago and asking you, how have you been able to do this? How have you been able to keep going and not been so beaten down by so many of the challenges that are there? There are always successes, and so I don't want to overshadow all of the successes and highlights with challenges all the time, but I think it's a humbling moment to know what you shared with me, and that was to just have patience. You took it bit by bit, could cry, small steps at a time. And so often we get so excited about moving forward and moving big, like you said, I'm just going to move, I'm just going to leave. But there is a wisdom, and I think there was even a proverb that we've used is, only a fool tests the water with both feet. And I think it's important to note that when you're doing something like this and on this scale and magnitude, that it is important for us to take our time, and it's not always easy. And I just want to give thanks to you for having the discipline and the love for our people to do that, and to be here today and sharing that with us.
Yeah, give thanks. A pleasure and an honor. And, I continue to stand on the shoulders of those who came before me. And so I feel it's my responsibility to share. And, I see that ultimately African people were on the rise, you know what I mean? And I'm glad to be a part of this summit, and just that awakening and elevating that I feel as I travel the world that our people are part of. So let's continue to move forward. Let's continue to build. Let's continue to heal. And, I'm excited to welcome all of the family here in Ghana 2020 October for the Black Sustainability Summit. Talk to you all soon.
Thanks, Brother Cashawn. Okay, for those who are still on here, we're going to go ahead and log off so I can process this recording. You all can click the link that's been emailed to you to join Brother Chad for the hemp workshop that is coming up. I will go ahead and post it also right here very quickly, so you don't have to go and dig for it. It's in the chat. And I'll see you all in a few moments. Let's see.